content that can be put. So that is one experiment. In next one, please. This is another experiment which I shall show you. Yeah, if we can. There is a video there. But before I get to the video, I'll give you a little context for this. So as you know, that the biggest thing that we want is, or our USP or special thing is that we take local youth and train them to be teachers. We have a very good training program that we have in place. So the problem that came from the field was that there's a lot of transmission loss. We have these master teachers, who are right at the center, and it goes down from the teacher. We have a big organizational structure. We have divided the country into 4 parts, and then the states, there's the Bhag and the Sambhag, and finally it comes to the Anchal, which is about anywhere from 150 to 450 villages depending on that Anchal, and then it comes to the lowest level, which is lowest or one level, which is the low and high. Is a very difficult concept to talk about. But the group of 30 villages where we have the training for the teachers that happen. So by the time it comes from there to here, there's transmission laws, and also for the women, the more they can come to the training, it will be better. So they said, what can we do with technology in this? So what we did was record our own, video our own teacher, the master teacher, take their training and bring it. So in Nagpur, we took a Sanch where we have trainers and then tried to give them the training based on this and then ask them to use it to improve their own teaching, and that was very effective. I just went to Nagpur and visited them. So there was a couple of things. We are again partnering with IIT Bombay on this. So the product is called Lokavidya, which can do 2 things. One is present this content that is top down, and also allows the local people to create their own content. So which is, I think, so they said, go look at this video and create your own examples, create your own ideas, and then you can also see how your work is happening. So for example, you will see a video of how we teach, and this was a very good thing. Can you show that? Yeah. So this is a master trainer by the name of Mittalji, who is really, really very good, and see how they train. So you may want. It was great for me to see this actually. Is there an audio on it? It'll come in minutes.
नमस्कार बंधुओं, प्रशिक्षण में आज का अपना विषय है गणित शिक्षण, यानी गणित पढ़ाना।
I know some of you may not understand Hindi, but just watch it.
विद्यालयों में गणित कैसे पढ़ाया जाए, उसमें भी हम अपनी बात जहाँ से शुरू करेंगे। गणित शिक्षण का उद्देश्य क्या है? एकल विद्यालयों में हम गणित क्यों पढ़ाते हैं? इसके लिए हमें ध्यान में रखना होगा एकल विद्यालय अर्थात देश के दूर दराज में पिछड़े हुए अति पिछड़े हुए ग्राम, जिन्हें हम गिरिवासी, वनवासी, निर्धनता, निरक्षरता, सभी प्रकार का वहाँ पिछड़ापन होगा। उन गाँवों में रहने वाले हमारे छोटे छोटे बच्चे, सामान्यतया 6 वर्ष से 14 वर्ष आयु तक के बच्चे, उनको हमें गणित पढ़ाना है। उन गांव में रहने वाले बच्चों को गणित पढ़ाने का हमारा क्या उद्देश्य है? उन बच्चों को गणित पढ़ाने का हमारा उद्देश्य है, पहला, उन बच्चों में बाजार से लेन देन की ठीक क्षमता का विकास होना। उन बच्चों को बाजार से कुछ लाने के लिए कहा जाए, भली प्रकार वो खरीदारी कर सके, कौन सी वस्तु कहाँ सस्ती है, कहाँ महंगी है, कुछ लंबाई वाली चीजें, कुछ वजन तोलने वाली चीजें, अलग अलग स्थानों में पता कर सके कहाँ से लेने में हानि होगी, कहाँ से लेने में लाभ होगा, फिर ठीक हिसाब करके वो
So they're teaching the kids. Rewind a little. Yeah, just over there. That's right.
When he introduces it.
ज़्यादा घर हम सिखा चुके हैं, हमने दे दिया।
Okay, let's stop it. So
हटा दिया।
So I'm just going to. So for example, they take actual objects and show counting. So for one of the things Mittalji always says is, don't imagine things, take things that are available. So for example, if you want to give the number 1, just say moon, because there's only one moon, so, and what surprised me was this is in Hindi, and it was done to a group that speaks Marathi. And it was, in fact, they were a little confused because he gave an example of certain leaves and they said, we don't know what that leaf is. And I couldn't believe that there's a cultural change in even going from, he's from Rajasthan to, to Maharashtra. So what happened is, this is what was presented to our teachers. It was given on a phone to them. It was cut actually into different modules, and so they, he uses all the kids, he says teen chidiya, 3 birds, 4 things. So this is counting, and very beautiful. I mean, the mechanism is really, if you look at it, I'm so impressed with what they are teaching. So what the teachers did was watched it. Then they came up with their own, what are they doing wrong, so, and really understand from Mittalji, and they started peer reviewing each other's work. So, and then they went back for a month. They did their own thing, and some of them came back with their own examples in Marathi. And so it was a very powerful thing, and 1 or 2 of the, people, especially the women, said, we really want to be master trainers. And what we saw from, those metrics that was done, pre and post, it made a huge difference. And there are questions that are interspersed, so the teachers were also asked to take questions. And they found that after the training, it really impacted quite a bit. So really, I think this is a very powerful thing. If we can actually transmit it in a proper way, we'll have, can we escape this and just go back to my...
So Ekal has rolled out this new curriculum platform. Is that what?
That's the hope. Right now, it's experimental.
It's experimental.
So,
Okay.
The same platform can be also used to provide other skill training. This was another experiment from IIT Bombay where they used that same Lokavidya tool to give it to a mason, novice mason, who was taught how to make a biogas plant. And so now in that Palghar area, there are about 6 or 7 masons who have been trained in using biogas plant. As you know, so when I went to, move it to the next slide. So here is a stove that's actually running on the biogas plant. If you look at the video, it was originally they were using the chula, so not only a health hazard, but also for the women to go out into the forest and collect the firewood is a very big thing. Next slide, please. So this is the area that I'm talking about. I was in this area just recently, in this Vada area. The problem in this village particularly is that, not in this village, but that area, water and this firewood collection is a lot of time consuming for the villagers. Next slide, please. So what we did, actually we attended an Arogya Sevika training where we are getting all the women to be healthcare workers. They were doing a training, and the IIT Bombay person presented the biogas plant, how to do this, to these women, and all of them were very ready to make this happen. And now that we have trained about 6 masons, this could really impact their own homes. And so this is what is Ekal's advantage, right? I can bring the villagers together, right now there are 30-40 of them here, you can see all the women, but there are more that we can bring, show, and make things happen. So that is, so we are hoping that we'll get by.
This is the training in Vada right now, right?
Vada.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And
so this is Vada.
Yes. Yeah.
So at the GRC we make those models. This is at the GRC, the biogas plant is put at the GRC. Now when people come in there, we can actually show them, and that's why these kind of centers where we are, they are here for either tailoring or health training, but when we bring the women, they get very motivated, and if we can reach out to them and work with them. Next slide. So these are all areas where we have already. We are really investigating if we could do something in Telangana, something in Rajasthan. We are looking for land. If you know people who might have land in these areas, let us know, because we are ready to move on here. What it costs to get a GRC going, it's about $100,000 a year for about 3-4 years. If we can put that in, we are working on a model that we can actually collect money and make it self-sustaining after a while. And the idea is that once it becomes self-sustaining, once there is skill development done, we hope the villagers themselves will support the Ekal schools rather than, so it's our plan to get off of charity roles. This is what we want to do. Next slide, please. So there is investing in Ekal. We have these models. I think some of you might know about it. If you have any further questions, let me know. A lifetime support for an Ekal school. It's a one-time donation for $5,000. Ekal on Wheels, you saw that. That's $50,000. Tailoring center, digital literacy training center. Those are about in that range. And again, it doesn't have to be one time. The tailoring and digital literacy, we can have that kind of donation that is, the 30 spread over 2 years or 2.5 years. There are also 30 village cluster developments, we can do that. But this, actually the digital literacy, tailoring and village resource centers are very effective. And so we really would like to, push that force. And then of course annual donation, you have supports for schools. Next slide. I think that was the last. Okay.
Yeah.
I usually put a thank you slide, so I'll just say thank you. So that's it. If you have questions, please let me know. And so this time I really saw the impact of that. Teacher training. I think that was very impactful, and it's our hope. We spoke to Madhavendra and others, and now they're quite convinced that they would at least like to bring it to the training up to the Sanch level, or at least up to the Anchal level. So give devices up to the Anchal level and see how that's going. And they're thinking about the logistics of how do you give these devices, how do you manage them, all of that. So one thing that really surprised me that, in the Sanch level, I thought that smartphones are intuitive. It's not as intuitive as one thinks. It surprised me a lot, So at the very least, whether they do better training for the teachers or not, if they learn smartphones, that itself is good for them. But once they got on it, it was so exciting for them. And that is the other thing. They got very excited about it, and I think that was a great thing. So that was one thing that is really going ahead. And now the GRCs, they are really focusing on the GRC, because if you have that center space, that we can, instead of doing ad hoc small projects everywhere, they really want to have it focused. Even with the Arogya, coming into the GRC makes a lot of sense. So those of you who are Ekal volunteers, really, when you spread this message out to our donors, we are looking to have those focused efforts so that we can have that impact, we can have the metrics. And now everything that the cost includes, impact analysis. So we do have monies put in for impact analysis, and that's a big, important thing that we can move forward.
So Ranjit, for one GRC to start,
Yeah.
they need minimum of 100 villages.
Yeah, 100. So we always go into an area where we have Ekal villages. So that's
100
important.
villages are covered.
Yeah.
And you showed there are about 12 GRCs.
Right.
All of them are functioning equally well?
No, of course not. So they are not functioning equally well or not, but they are at different stages of development, I would say. So places, Karanjo, is at its full, and I have a little bit, I think by next week I'll have actual, exactly in each GRC what activities are happening, what are not. I have that tabular form. By April 7th, the team is supposed to give it to me. I have seen it already, but they want to validate it and give it to me. But at some level, so like places in Tinsukia, I'll say this, on the left side, whatever I have, land is there. And some activities have started. But full-fledged, only a few of them are there, and we're really looking for donors to help us work through that. In Telangana and Rajasthan, we don't have land yet, and so if people know of, again, it has to be, at this moment, one of two things. Either it has to be in an Ekal area where Ekal schools are already running, or if we need to go into a new area, then we need to have at least the ability to run 90 schools in that area. So one or the other has to happen. So I know some of you are asking, can we go into a new area? Yes, we can, but we need support for running Ekal schools.
So for example, say GRC.
Yeah.
It's recently starting.
Right.
And they don't have many resources, but they are focusing on vermicompost pits.
Right.
Does it mean that all the 100 villages will have the vermicompost pits?
So we will certainly...
Is that how they function?
No, the way they function is they invite everybody from the villages to get training. Mm-hmm. From many of the villages where they find that there is some interest, they pick some leaders from the community. So their hope is to identify at least 4 leaders in each village, in those 100 villages. They start out actually with the first closest 30 villages and then go out. So in that 30 villages, they find 4 people whom they think could be encouraged. They really work with them a lot. And then, so we might have 4 vermicompost pits in each village in that 30 level. And then we will work on, but if there are more that come, so they usually do a festival where they invite, so there's always a temple on the campus of the GRC, so some festival happens, so people come. And then once they come and they see that, and then once that we find those leaders and they take off and they're making money, that is the best selling agent to that. And Sunil, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yeah, so one of the things, the last time I was there in Wada with Lalanji and the group, so they are looking at this idea of a push and pull concept where they're going to bring the people to the GRC, but they're also going to send people from the GRC into the village also.
Right.
So that was one of the 2 programs that you
Right.
just showed. One is the the Arogya Sevika training that's going on in every GRC,
Right.
and the Charya training program that's going on at every, and both of those I think were happening in Vada, right?
GRC, the Acharya was in Nagpur.
Nagpur.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think they just had an Acharya training.
Of course, yeah.
In,
Vada it
in
keeps
Vada.
going, yeah.
So the idea is to have that where the villagers are coming, but they also have found that a lot of them cannot come.
Yeah.
So Lalanji and the group have made this system as we also need to go outreach, and they are doing that. So which is quite amazing.
Yeah, hub and spoke model is what they want to go with.
Yes.
So hub is the GRC, which is
Hub and spoke.
very
Yeah.
heavyweight, doing a lot of things. But in the center of the 30 villages, there are smaller units like tailoring
like one you
center,
talk.
like and depending on the area, digital literacy and tailoring is a very important one that has really brought economic impact to that area. And it might be then from there on we go ahead and do vermicompost, and also the Ekal on wheels. Once that is a way also to at least give the information to say, come to the GRC. We are doing these kinds of training. And but once they find 3 or 4 people like Lalanji really work with them, and you saw some of the examples that have been. Yes.
So I had a question about Ekal on wheels. Is that is it connected to internet? Probably not, right?
Not right now.
Yeah, and so it's mostly digital literacy, right? It's actually learning how to.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want to clarify.
Yeah. So actually, when I went to IIT Bombay this time, they do have this interesting program where they take unused cell tower and put some kind of transmitter on it, and have a receptor on in the village, or even it could go on the van. It hasn't happened yet. To have local connection and those kinds of really looking. But to the point, I hear that there's more and more Wi-Fi, more and more data, 3Gs coming around. So haven't seen it yet, but at this moment it's all local. Yes.
Yeah,
so
I think there was talk of putting hotspots
in
possibly in the vans.
but
They were talking satellite, but satellite was too expensive.
right, exactly, Saturday. And also there's some I think issues with government if you put satellites in those, because the areas we go, it's remote rural villages, so you need to be careful that terrorism is not, so communication tools are always, we need to be careful with that.
Right.
So this is not satellite, so that's why it was a little bit better, but we don't know. But definitely looking to investigate that. I think it'll happen. But if you have ideas, anybody, on what we could do let us know. We are, very interested.
Yeah, I was in India recently, only came 2 weeks back.
Yeah.
And I really found everything crowded. People, animals, dogs, you name it.
Right.
Really. What are we doing for that?
Well, if Ekal succeeds, the crowds will go away in a magical way, because right now the crowds happen because people are coming from the villages into the cities, and they are really crowding it out. Again, this is a vision. I'm not saying that tomorrow morning, but at least it's a model, that indeed in the villages you go, it's not crowded. That's the whole thing.
Yes,
so if we
it
could.
is. I went to my village, totally crowded.
Okay, I don't. At least the villages I've been to, it's not. But it's a good point. I don't know. Other than maybe it's a bigger village. Probably people are crowding to that. I don't know what it
Very
is.
small village,
Uh-huh.
and still as it is. 30 mud walls
It's all quick.
type of houses,
Yeah.
and totally, really
Crowded.
crowded.
Okay.
But they all had cell phones.
Yes, that's a very good point. Yeah, absolutely.
And somebody contacted them, they all came, my playmates.
Yes. Yes, there you go.
So this is more of a philosophical question. So one of the problems that I see when we're trying to connect people, especially in rural areas digitally, is this new flood of information that comes in. Much of that information can be dictated on how much money is behind information, which doesn't necessarily mean that it's the best information. In some cases, it's the most profitable information. So a lot of times in these rural areas, their first depiction of the modern world is Coca-Cola commercials and these kind of things depicting this wonderful, happy existence, mostly centered around this product that they're all drinking together.
Right.
And I just wonder if you guys have some intent behind countering these inevitabilities?
Sure. Very, very good question. And actually, this is why some of the initial pushback came that negative energies will go through the data before the positive energy. I mean, Coca-Cola could be arguably negative, but not as negative as other things that could be even more dangerous that comes through. So that's a good question. But my point is that I think this is where we are going with this. You cannot stop information flow. That's just like reading it. Long years ago, I mean, a couple of centuries ago, they would say if everybody became literate, maybe they'll read the wrong things, and that's true. They could get the pornographic books before they get the productive engineering textbooks, which they may need, But that is the reality, right? And I think so. But I'll say it from at least IIT Bombay. Professor Ganesh Ramakrishnan thinks about this a lot. He's a professor of computer science, and he's really put a lot of thought into it. And the hope is that if we cannot quite prevent everything. It's really hard. I mean, we know that everywhere. The point that Professor Ramakrishnan says is that the pornography is already there, so let's put positive things on it, let's not prevent that from happening. So the other thought is this idea of the spoken tutorials or Lokavidya, where they are creating the content themselves, could potentially make it so that if there's useful content, like what do I go for, right? I go for content that's interesting to me. I mean, that's some of the reason why this, now this news which is focused, right? We could have negative news too, but we could have positive too. And so that's why he's really pushing for this, where can we talk about water management the way we want? For example, the biogas, right? This is not interesting to me. I won't build one, but maybe people locally can do that, and if they use local language, local ability. So his dream is that we create a Loka Vidya, that's people's knowledge, have a like a wiki for the people themselves. So that's and I know that Sunil has a comment on that, so go ahead, Sunil.
I think the best answer to this is if you look at Ekal's own education, value education.
That's a very good point.
So if we teach, if not even teach, if we let the people develop their morality and develop their own idea of what's right and wrong, then like Ranjit said, and in a sense, we cannot stop the bad things from coming. But what we can do is at least have the people, give the people the ability to decide that this is right and this is wrong, or this is right or wrong for me and my children. And that's what Ekal's focus was. For the last 25 years, that's all Ekal has been doing.
Exactly.
I mean, it's not been focusing on, let's bring literacy, let's bring this. It's the idea of this critical thinking aspect of letting the people decide what is right and wrong. Like one of the biggest things that we look at is the whole idea of teaching the villager about alcohol, about all the bad things that are happening and how to overcome these bad habits. So that's kind of the way it needs to work. I mean, we can always be sitting here and living in this bubble of fear that everything's gonna, tomorrow this is gonna happen, that's gonna happen, my kid's gonna get exposed to this, my child's gonna get exposed to that, they're gonna get, pornography's there, all that. It's there. I mean, we can't stop it. What we can do is have the education to get them to think.
Right.
And that's what Ekal is. This is what Ekal is in a nutshell.
That's a beautiful comment. So value education, to Sunil's point, has been our focus forever, right? And so that's beautiful, definitely. So I think what you would do to your own kids, I think that's what it is, right? There is always pornography coming in, or whatever else, Coca-Cola coming into our own screen. The point is, you tell your child not to drink it, whatever it is, so I think that's a beautiful thing.
Or teach them what's,
right.
What is positive and negatives.
And let them think for themselves. I think that's something that we really work on.
Yeah, so I'm certainly in total agreement with all of this. The one point that I would say is that the money behind the psychology and infrastructure that goes into advertising,
right,
neuromarketing, things like that even somebody that is perfectly, like myself, perfectly aware of all of its capabilities is still susceptible to it.
Sure.
That it goes beyond, coming up with your own morality. I would just hope that when these things are going to be introduced, that there is some framework behind people understanding what goes, the psychological attempts that these corporations are making
Right.
to get you to buy into their concepts and ultimately into their profitability.
Right. But to his point, I mean, I think two things. Of course, right now we are, crawling, and one of the things is that we haven't really taken. We're very little bit fussy about taking the support from certain corporations. We have not done that. In fact, right now it's very grassroots movement.
Yeah.
I mean, the problem or whatever, the other side of it is we have not taken corporate support. And definitely we have never engaged, right now we are taking a lot of CSR, that's corporate social responsibility money, but we have never engaged in using that as a marketing tool for anybody at this time. I don't see it in their, group of what they want to do going forward as well. We've been very wary of that. We don't even touch the government money for that same reason, that really try to stay away from that. So I think that is one thing. Of course, given that internet is open, there's no question about that. I can't prevent that. But at least from Ekal's perspective, a little bit careful about that and not using us as to almost the other side of it. They really don't want to touch corporations. They really are like, don't do this. I mean, I think we could be a little bit more flexible, so we are going quite on that side. Given that we are in an experimental phase, and we are really hoping that the values that we have inculcated, and we really build in addition to morality, we really build in a pride for their local things and local traditions and local confidence in what they are eating and drinking locally. That's something that we focus a lot on. We teach them to grow the things that they are eating. And again, who knows where this will go. So in urban areas, it's a huge challenge. But in the rural areas where they can grow things, where they can, in our songs, or we will, "Main kisan banunga," I will become a farmer who is going to grow things and eat the right thing. I don't know the answer. I can't say that yes, we have solved the problem, but at least the attempt is there. I would say that for sure. And again, I think to Professor Ganesh Ramakrishnan's thing, if you can make it economically viable for them to use information that is more important to them, that is localized to them, maybe we'll counter. I think at the end of the day, that's what it is, right? So I'm sure the corporations are super smart. So and Professor Ramakrishnan is also a machine learning leading expert, but still, I'm sure they are smart and they'll do things. But we'll see, and we'll have to figure it out as we go along. I mean, there are challenges that are happening in the cities that I'm seeing. People are not eating right. I mean, I'm seeing diabetes is on an increase, all of these things, and who knows, development does bring its own challenges with it, but we will figure it out. So, but we cannot stop it, so that's hope here.
And just to add to that, I mean, I gave you the idealistic scenario, but the reality, the practical scenario is like when we went to Karan Joe, we put the internet, we put a DNS server, the blocks, and we only allowed, that limited space of access, and the areas the key areas we allowed were sites like Wikipedia, and
Like a firewall.
we had a firewall. Actually, it was a little bit broader than a firewall.
Yeah. Oh, that's
and
cool.
because we had the access was it was for a very wider area.
It's fantastic.
But like Aaron put up a very foolproof, internet connection where they were only allowed. I mean, they couldn't go on just Google. They had only limited access to relevant sites. And responsibility needs to be there until we have to kind of work from both ends.
I think that's it.
And but the thing is, I think the more important is working that end, and then slowly giving information, like you say, giving information that is relevant first.
Yeah.
And then adding on the rest.
My biggest fear always is that rural people start to feel insignificant in comparison to the modern depiction.
The insecurities and self.
But at this point, just giving them computers makes them confident.
Without even internet.
Without even internet. Actually, it has been opposite right now. I mean, at this moment. Whether they'll feel insufficient later, we don't know. But the fact that they can touch these things and look at this, what I saw most importantly was increase in confidence, which to me was tremendous.
Even in our test
group. They were like feeling stupid otherwise, right? And now they're like, oh, we know computers. It's not anymore this thing that I don't know anything about, that I can touch it and I know how to use it.
Yeah, because even when we ran the first test in Karan Joe, we took 10 tablets and all that, and we just handed it, controlled environment, handed it to a bunch of kids, And that's all we did for 30 days, was watch what these kids do with these tablets. And it was amazing. It was amazing. And then we took it to the next level when you came with the with the laptops and the
MindSparks
and all
we've
that.
done a lot of different things, yeah.
Yeah, so.
But at the end of the day, what really works
the
is
reception,
the
receptiveness is the most amazing.
On the topic of education beyond primary, let me give you an example. If, let's say, one of the Arogya Sevikas want to pursue a degree in nursing,
right.
where the medium of instruction is mostly English,
Right.
but then she's been trained throughout, in local language, and it'd be good that she would want to probably even come back and serve, in different capacity.
Right.
So, do you see any ceiling for them for upward mobility in that respect, or?
So, great question. So, but we are not in that business of doing the education, higher level education. But what has happened is that for once these people, there's a good example of this woman who learned tailoring with us, Shilpa Mishra in Karanjo. Once you empower them and give them money, what she did was she went to an online course at the center, because we have internet now, and got her BA, in something. This is not through us doing, encouraging her to do this. So to your point, actually, I was really surprised to see women are doing these kinds of things. Language is a barrier, of course, it's always there. I mean, when I went this time, I met a couple of women from Taliseri and other areas who actually did their engineering at SNDT Women's University, and they said they came from Marathi medium and went into English medium and studied, so this seems to be, but they picked it up and they went with it. I think this is a model that, if I look at my own father, he came from an Ekal like school, he went to Tamil medium school till he was in that inter whatever it is, and then went on. So these seem to figure it out a little bit. I am not saying that, I think we should do more, it will be good to give English but at this time I think it's being replicated everywhere, that the local language is being, used for their things, but I do think English is being taught, so, it's not in a great way. Even these engineers who did, quote unquote BTech in computer science from SNDT University, did not speak English comfortably with me, but they were doing it, but their focus was to go back into the villages and support, and they were actually part of the Lokvidya team, so it is really doing well, but it is a challenge, and I think motivation is what makes people do more than language as a barrier. Not to say that we should not bring English, we should absolutely, and that's an important thing. But anyway, unless you were going there.
Or even the fact that there are some, basic educational type of courses, or on the side, which are in local language, where there's like a nursing equivalent in local language at the basic level, and then they can go on.
So I think now, as I see, some of these universities do offer that. So, but again, definitely, if you need to go to a high level, no question about it. English is any science. English is going to be. If you don't know English, it's going to be a impediment. But again, I think at the end of the day, if you could motivate them and provide the access, yes, they may not become genius. They're not going to necessarily going to an MIT. But I think they do learn a lot, and that's but there's a lot of pull for English. I mean, every time I go into the village, what do they want to learn? English, just like technology, And again, the hope is that if we could, that experiment I showed you with the tablets in Nanak Matha, that would be a good idea of at least giving them some familiarities. So they're doing this, have some videos that have English subtitles, to read, and there are some mechanisms out there. But if there are good products, again, something to experiment with, and at least technology allows us to do that, because we don't have people in the areas their mother doesn't know English, so she can't read a book. She can't read when they go to bed anyway. So I think it would be something that we need to work on. So definitely to work on. But I have realized at the end of the day, the most important thing for a student is motivation. If you could motivate them, they figure it out. And just like all of us, I mean, when hackers, right? I mean, many of us are computer science. That's how we learned, right? So I think that's a very key thing, and I think Ekal brings that a lot. The values and the motivation, I think, is there.
And also, Ranjit, there is another side to this. Even though we can discuss this more later.
Yeah.
But if the mother is, say, for Mukul, if she's only trained as a Arogya Sevika and she only speaks Hindi, so be it. But through her children have a better option
Yeah, absolutely.
of moving forward. Just like we all had. Our parents perhaps did not know.
Right.
Never came to USA, but we are here.
And just the way it is.
Well,
Yeah.
do we have any more conversation or any
Yes,
more
we
questions
can
too,
continue.
or?
Yeah, we can stop at this moment.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
Anybody? Last question, and then I'll leave. So, okay. Thank you so much. It's been awesome.
Okay, well, we've got two more speakers, we've got Ekal and Ben, but I was thinking, does anybody want to take like a mass bio break?
Yeah.
Walk
That's
around, yeah.
quick
you know?
ideas.
And the restrooms are outside.